Folks, welcome back to So Bad It's Good. I am so excited about our guest today. She is what I consider a true Renaissance woman. She is the author of the best-selling books Cultish and most recently The Age of Magical Overthinkers and the host of the award-winning podcast Sounds Like a Cult and the more recent pod Magical Overthinkers. I think she is fantastic and I think you will love both of these podcasts and you need to check out her books. Amanda Montell, thank you so much for being here.
Oh my God, a gift, a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Well, see, so I watched you moderate a panel for Discovery ID. The Judy,
you were there?
Yes, yeah. The Ruby and
the Ruby, Frankie, and Judy Hildebrandt hullabaloo.
Yeah. Yes, and you moderated that, and it's such a serious topic. But I think with all of your work, you're able to bring in a much needed sense of not levity, but there is an appreciation for the absurdity sometimes of cult and cult-like behavior.
I try. You know, there are a lot of people in the cult space, the cult recovery space, the psychology space who specify in cultishness, who obviously take a very reverent academic tone to the subject matter. And I feel like the thing that I can bring to it is a sense of storytelling, a sense of accessibility. And it's a delicate dance. I mean, it's not funny all the time to talk about these behaviors, but exactly to your point, there is something kind of ridiculous and even satirical to be said about the ways in which human beings search for meaning and purpose these days.
Well, that's what it's all about, is searching for meaning and purpose. The only reason I think cults exist is because we want to belong to something.
Yeah.
You know, we want to be a part of something. And I think that's where a cult obviously will get you. And you've covered so many of these things. And even you just saying the cult space. In the year 2025, that there is something called the cult space.
Yeah. I mean, think of how many people are recovering, not just from one of the more stereotypical, there I go. Okay, I'm going to take it again. Think of how many people are recovering from not just one of the stereotypically classic cults of the 70s, like, I don't know, the Children of God or, high control religious sect or something like that, the Jehovah's Witnesses, the 2x2s, Mormonism. But people recovering from QAnon ideology, people who are trying to deconstruct, some of their problematic New Agey beliefs, their political stances. There are just so many ways to affiliate with cults these days. I mean, the hardcore fandom that takes over your life. And,
my whole career is based on hardcore fandom at this point. Yeah. And so for me to be ignorant to the fact of I deal with insane fandom every day. And I think the more I get into this show over the years, it's almost affected my own personal fandom because it's taken sometimes the enjoyment out of it. Like you did, you didn't host this episode, but you did a recent episode on Beyoncé.
Yes, hosted by my darling co-host Chelsea Charles. Oh God, she did.
Which I loved it,
job.
but I was like, that's asking a lot of somebody to go into the fray to potentially have discourse from Beyoncé's fans, good or bad, because fandoms now, very much like cults, will come after you, whether it be the Swifties or the Beehive. They will come after you with a vengeance, in a sense.
Sometimes I joke that I'm Swiftie passing, or I can code switch into Swiftie speak, because I feel like I have spoken to enough really hardcore Swifties as well as followers of the different sub-denominations like the Gaylors, the Kaylors, etc.
Yeah.
And I'm deeply curious and fascinated by what these different rituals and ideologies bring to their life. And I'm also fascinated by what whips them up into, a kind of psychologically violent frenzy. And I've listened enough and picked up on enough of the Swiftie rituals and modes of speech that I feel like I can talk about it in a way that, knock on wood, has not brought the dog piles.
Yeah, you can be an entrance point, which can be actually, it's okay. We're just having a conversation.
I do. I tend in my work to try to take the temperature down on things. There are a lot of people, especially in the attention economy clickbait era. And look, I'm not exempt. I mean, every episode of Sounds Like a Cult is called the cult of blank, the cult of blank, the cult of blank,
which, by the way, you guys, if you have never listened to this podcast, I'm telling you, just scroll through the episodes. You will find something that you are a cult of or you have been interested in. And it really really, it's all like, I just listened to an episode about Leo DiCaprio that was out a couple months ago.
Yeah.
Never would have thought he would be considered cult-like, but then after the episode, I was like, I see, because that thin line between fandom and cult it is growing thinner every day.
Yeah, and that has so much to do with the ways in which we talk about cults. So my book is structured like this. The book Cultish, Language of Fanaticism, it's about the language of cults from Scientology to SoulCycle.
And you've always studied linguistics, right?
Yes, that's what my background is in. That's what I studied in undergrad. My first book, Word Slut, sort of undersung first book, is about language and gender. Language, gender, and power. It's like this sort of cheeky, fun, quick and dirty crash course in feminist sociolinguistics. I wonder why a whole bunch of people didn't read that. No, I'm proud of the like 25-year-old girly pop who wrote that. Anywho, that book really was based on my undergraduate studies. It's kind of making linguistics and why we talk the way we do fun and accessible for everyday readers. But my dad grew up in a cult, and so I had always been fascinated by his stories, the techniques of influence that he would describe in that group. It was a cult called Synanon. There have been a few documentaries and memoirs about it, but as I was thinking about what I wanted my next book to be, I still wanted to write about language and power. I also wanted to like reach maybe a slightly broader audience, but I also wanted to write about something that was, of course, like genuinely interesting to me. And it occurred to me to write about the language of cults, not necessarily inspired by my dad, but because one of my closest friends has started going to AA. And she was speaking in that vernacular. You know, they have such a robust vocabulary there. Phrases like halting and caught a resentment and, like one day at a time and, all kinds of mantras and buzzwords like that. And this was a group that was changing her life for the better, although I know not everybody has that experience with AA. And yet there was something cultish about the way that she was using language. Yeah. And so it occurred to me like, I want to write this book about like this wide spectrum of groups and how they all use language to influence not only members of some of the most destructive cults of all time, like Jonestown and Heaven's Gate, but also how this language shows up in our everyday lives for better and for worse. And so, I grew up on my dad's stories. I wrote this book about that, and it's really helped me. It's really humbled me.
Wait, how has it humbled you?
Well, because I went into it sort of smugly like, like this cult language is something that like other people are susceptible to, not me. And then as I started, speaking to experts and survivors and followers of even cults like SoulCycle, I realized that I have been in my fair share of cults too, you know? Like I have certainly been in cults of one, like toxic romantic relationships or mentor-mentee relationships, which really resemble cult dynamics, even though the techniques of influence might go by different names. So anyway, the podcast was kind of picking up where the book left off, and I have not run out of topics over the years.
I don't think you ever will.
I don't think I ever
mean, you
will.
had lightly mentioned Gwyneth Paltrow in an episode recently, and I just finished reading a book about her and her life and the goop of it all.
Yeah.
And I just thought, wow, that is truly its own kind of cult on its
For sure.
And sometimes in today's success, you're not considered a success unless you have a cult-like following.
Completely. Oh, and I was gonna say, like, thank God I remember the point I wanted to make.
Okay, start right now.
So rare.
We're going to start the episode right now.
Well, so much, I was going to say, like, the way that we talk about cults has so much to do with the history of these groups and the way that we describe them. And so even though my book covers this wide range of groups and how they use language, I start the book by describing the ways that we talk about cults. And it's weird because like this word cult, we all think of it now as having this kind of negative connotation. But cults weren't really this like mainstream priority, something that everyone should know about, that everyone should fear, until the Jonestown Massacre of 1978 and the Manson family murders of 1969 really put cults on the mainstream map. Before that, like they were known as kind of heretical, and long before that, when this word first appeared, it was just a way to describe, kind of an homage paid to divinity or offerings made to win over the gods. There was always this kind of mystical connotation, but the negative connotations didn't arrive until later. And yet, in the 70s, as soon as the word cult became scary, it also became cool. And that's why we have phrases like cult followed and cult classic. Yeah. And so we can use this word in so many different contexts to describe something.
Cult can sometimes almost be considered underdog.
completely. Oh, like the cult favorite or whatever.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, and so like I tend to have a pretty fluid usage of this word, which isn't everyone's taste, you know? Like some people will like tune into a Sounds Like a Cult episode for the first time and be like, yo, plant parents are not a cult. But it's with this
No, you had an
cheeky
episode
lens.
on Labubu's.
Yeah, yeah.
But by the way, if you hear people talk about Labubu's, you're like, oh, this is cult-like. I mean, there is a specific language in which they speak about them.
Rituals.
There is ritual in unboxing the box. There are all of those things that you would associate
There's us versus
with
them dynamics.
Oh, completely. You don't get it.
Yeah.
These are beautiful, and these are fulfilling a need in my life.
100%. There's the cult of consumerism
Yeah.
aspect.
Well,
yeah.
how much would that? I'm so sorry to hop around all over the place, but capitalism. How much does capitalism play into what makes a successful cult?
Hugely. I mean, we live in cults, and the United States have a very particular relationship.
Do we do cults the best?
Yeah.
Did we?
I'm biased, but yeah. No, I mean, like, this was a nation founded allegedly on religious freedom, spiritual
Allegedly.
freakiness. Yeah, I mean, not quite. It didn't, you know. But one of the reasons why cults tend to thrive in our society is because, well, it's one of the reasons why, despite the fact that we have a generally fairly high quality of life in the United States compared to, you know, the globe at large,
Yeah.
religiosity is really high here. You know, we have a lot of believers in God, and normally the higher quality of life or standard of living in a nation, the lower the religiosity will be, but we're kind of this glaring exception, and a huge part of that has to do with the lack of social safety nets in the United States, this lack of cohesive belonging, and feeling like if we lose our job or, you know, fall ill, the government will not catch us, you know? Like there is a lot leaving us sort of existentially unmoored
And so
in
then
this culture.
it actually turns people to things like religion.
Correct.
Things that will
That's right.
profess to protect you.
And when mainstream religion fails us, and there are times when, you know, when society feels crisis-ridden, when, you know, the mainstream church, the mainstream healthcare system, the government aren't really fulfilling their promises, there's a lot of tumult in society, we tend to turn to alternative groups. And in the 70s, a lot of those alternative groups were kind of these like woo-woo fringe religions, some of which were really destructive, some of which were kind of just weird but okay. Today, though, I think most of those religions, in scare quotes, are consumerist religions, capitalistic religions, fandoms. That is, you know, our new religion.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And I've thought so much about this, and obviously Scientology is such a big one, like just because it has that religious connotation, but also there is this celebrity angle to it, which they really, you know, want to lean into. And you know, Tom Cruise, obviously a huge spokesperson, and really hasn't been out at the forefront like he was at one point.
Yeah.
Just because there was so much leaked footage of him giving awards and Travolta and all of these things.
Oh my God. You know how they say that like the generational cutoff between Gen Z and millennials was whether or not you remember 9/11? I think it's whether or not you remember Tom Cruise jumping on Oprah's couch.
Amanda, that's sometimes like the saddest thing that goes through my head of like, you won't get the jumping on couch meme. You won't get the meme of him locking hands with Oprah and some guy making electricity come out of his palms.
It was monoculture. Not one
We don't
one
have
single person missed
monoculture
that.
anymore.
I know.
Do we have monoculture in cults even? Like cults seem so spread out and so site specific.
That's an interesting question and a really good point, because we think of cults, or like the stereotype of cults is that there is this compound with a charismatic leader at the helm. Everyone's sort of berobed and dropping acid.
Yeah.
I wish, you know, those are the cults of yore. I'm kidding. But today, because so many cults exist without an IRL gathering space, they're just online in forums, the manosphere, in 4chan, cults on Reddit, etc. Yeah, there are sort of, you know, there's a lot of infighting and disparate denominations, and without the sort of like in-person connective tissue to make us see one another's humanity, these things can spread like wildfire, and no one's ever really there to temper it or even get like the actual benefits of cults, like feeling a sense of community.
Scientology was always that interesting one. Just, you know, I was so obsessed with film that you couldn't help but read about Scientology. Because for a while they were doing such great outreach with celebrities. I mean, they had the
100%.
Celebrity Center. I mean,
Still do.
Funniest thing about Scientology, not the funniest, but like the thing about
I know what you mean.
Scientology is that most of their money is made in their real estate holdings. Is that they are a $1 billion organization because of investments in real estate.
I mean, this is a wild thing about so many of these like cults that we can mostly agree are cults. I'm not talking about Labubu. I'm not talking about Disney adults or Swifties. I'm talking about the Scientologies, the Heaven's Gates, the the 2x2s. Do you know about the 2x2s?
No, I don't think I do.
I just learned about them and I'm like obsessed with them. They're this actually, they don't even have an IRL compound. It's this like high demand religious sect where the preachers travel in twos and they live temporarily and peripatetically in different followers' homes. And there are up to 250,000 members of the 2x2 church. It's crazy. But
250,000?
They live all over the country. Yeah, you're like, okay,
does anybody ever ask you to cover them on the show to get like coverage?
Of the are people oh
like
my
the
god
2x2's
hilarious.
Like, please, if you could do an episode, we would really appreciate
That is so funny. Obviously not, but brands who are in on the joke like it when we cover them, and brands that are too cultish for comfort send us cease and desist.
Wow.
Straight up. It's a very interesting little space that I've gotten myself into. Because obviously, like, the show is called Sounds Like a Cult. We're not saying this is a cult. We're saying, like, this subculture sounds like a cult. And if people feel too threatened by that might
say something.
Get litigious. It said something about them.
Yeah,
fully. No, Peloton loved their episode.
Which, during the pandemic, there was a cult of Peloton.
For sure.
And you almost feel bad when their cult fell off because Peloton is not the... It's
I feel so
Well, no, in the sense that, like, wow, it's really, you don't hear about it in the same way as you once did.
Well, that's the cult of consumerism, too, is that, like, we live in a hype on to the next. I mean, I remember when we did our Stanley Cups episode in 2024, it was a hugely popular episode when it came out. And now, like, I don't think anybody's clicking on that in the back catalog when they scroll backwards because it just, it was a flash in the pan.
No, but what I love about your show is that I can click on any episode, and even if I don't find the title interesting, there's something in there that I'm like,
how dare you?
No, you know what I'm saying? Like, no, that's the greatest compliment ever is that you can make something that I didn't think I would really appreciate. Like, I listened to the Chick-fil-A episode. And on its face, I was like, well, I don't eat Chick-fil-A, whatever. But I was so fascinated. Your sister and, talking about language, there is a specific way in which the employees are supposed to talk to customers.
Yes.
You have to make direct eye contact.
You have to say my pleasure. It's all this very subservient language because it's a Christian operation.
Yes. And that's very simple on its face because you're like, well, yeah, they have a way of doing things. But to the show's point, that is exhibiting certain cult-like behaviors.
Yeah, and this is why we have our cheeky but nonetheless helpful cult classification system.
Yes, tell the people what this is.
Yeah, well, at the end of every episode, my co-hosts and I discuss whether the cult of the week was a live your life, a watch your back, or a get the fuck out level cult. And we do have this kind of fluid rubric in the back of our minds of when something crosses over from a live your life into a watch your back into a get the fuck out. Like, a live your life level cult, spoiler alert, would be like the cult of Trader Joe's, like there are rituals, there are uniforms.
You gotta get the bags.
Yeah, they exactly. People joke that the Trader Joe's cashiers love bomb you in the checkout line. They are,
I actually shop at Trader Joe's, and I'm just a weirdo that way. I feel so much pressure about that part of the exchange of making conversation because they're told to be nice to you, and so they're like, "Hey, how you doing?" And I'm like, "Good." I don't know how to do simple conversations.
I'm with you. I actually avoid the cult of Trader Joe's for this reason. I feel performance anxiety there, but yeah, they're clearly trying to be so much more than a grocery store. They say like your friendly neighborhood grocery market on their signage or whatever, something like that. Even though it's like this massive chain, and they're kind of just like rebranding generic food to seem healthier and more, like small batch or whatever. And there are, slight us versus them dynamics, like, the way that there are these exclusive Trader Joe's Facebook groups where everybody's like communicating about the drops and the seasonal products and whatever, and it's trying to whip people up into a cult following for sure. But there aren't intense exit costs. There isn't, true exploitation of the consumers.
You're not having to be deprogrammed.
No, and we can argue about how ethically they treat their employees, and we did cover that on that episode, but somewhat. But it's generally a live your life, and then you've got your watch your backs, where maybe there is some risk of labor exploitation or emotional abuse or something like that. And yeah, maybe there is a little bit more of that ends justify the means philosophy. Maybe it is like a lot more painful to leave or to express pushback. And then you got your get the fuck outs. I mean, a recent get the fuck out would be like the cult of Elon Musk.
Yeah.
You know, or like the cult of Mark Zuckerberg or the cult of Shen Yun.
Oh, sorry to laugh. Yeah, but yeah, you're right. I mean, the cult of Elon Musk is very fascinating, especially because he was able to buy a mouthpiece in Twitter. You know, he was able to put something out there. And I, you know, recently, barring like a couple of, I've officially gotten off Twitter, and it's not
Congrats.
like Threads. I mean, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's choose your
cult.
Yeah, choose your cult in a sense, but there was just such toxic negativity even for me.
Yeah,
and
even for me.
No, I do appreciate a good negative person. I do appreciate.
We do love a good hater.
Yeah, I mean, in a sense, but then it was just like, God, I am not strong enough to deal with this flood of what, even if I try to curate my experience, there is still something that will get in there that will leave me boggled for the day.
For sure. And you know, this is what I appreciate about the loyal loyal sounds like a cult is that, you know, there are listeners who will tune in for a one-off episode and like fully not understand the thesis or the tone of the show. And look, it is very particular. Like, we're, you know, sometimes joking. First of all, we're young women, youngish. Well, one of our co-hosts is 22. That's objectively young. We are young and youngish women, automatically not a beloved demographic in podcasting. And we're like, you know, sometimes poking fun at the absurd ways in which humans search for community and belonging and meaning. And some of that isn't funny, and we try to treat those moments with reverence. You know, I am a writer,
but that's also how you live your life in reality.
Completely. And, you know, when we get something wrong on the show, it's an opinion-based show, and we try to express our opinions with as much disclaimer and nuance as we possibly can. And yet there are people who are just going to fundamentally either disagree with the foundational premise of the show or, you know, think that we're like kind of making fun of Christianity, which, like, yes, like admittedly. And, you know, you can tell but what I really appreciate is when followers, subscribers, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, we're living in such a culty time when even like people
That's what I was, I mean, one of my things
social...
is like, there are cult followings of our podcast.
I know. And that's like the kind of meta thing. And I try to critique that while at the same time leaning into it in a sense, like in my live shows and even on air sometimes. Because, you know, I also have this other podcast, Magical Overthinkers, which is like, kind of sounds like a cult's wiser, more measured, older cousin or something. And the structure of that episode or of that show is every episode is overthinking about blank, overthinking about blank, overthinking about blank. And it's some like buzzy, taboo, psychological phenomenon in our culture right now, like going no contact or people pleasers.
Well, I mean, you were talking about the last episode about therapy speak.
Yeah, therapy speak.
You know?
Oh my God, you really like did your research on this?
I mean, I go to therapy, you know, and it is interesting how different life is from the 90s compared to today in terms of or how encouraged you are to talk about and seek out mental health help. You know? And I love that about society. But sometimes we use the same words so much that it almost takes the meaning out of those words, which I know you study as well, is that we neutralize certain words which used to be so effective.
Yeah. There are definitely growing pains and side effects of the sort of mainstreaming of therapy terminology. And, you know, studying linguistics, you learn to take an interest in how language does work, not how it should work. So I'm constantly sort of reminded to approach that sort of thing with curiosity rather than pedantry. And yet it's hard not to have a pet peeve when people, you know, use the word gaslighting when what they really mean is like we're having a gentle disagreement or something.
Or narcissist.
We're a narcissist or like validating whatever. But it is cool because like whenever, you know, I encounter a phenomenon making sounds like a cult or just like being a person online that makes me really anxious, like people inciting, you know, conflict in the comments where I think, you know, a much more respectful conversation could have been had or something like that. I'm in the privileged position of getting to take those anxieties over to the Magical Overthinkers podcast and like interview a psychologist about, you know, rage bait or imposter syndrome or something like that. And so, my podcast kind of like offset one one another in this really nice
but
way.
that's why it works beautifully. And that's why, I mean, because you've been
you.
doing the one podcast for a year and a half, Magical Overthinkers.
Yeah.
But I think that it's very complimentary in that sense.
Thank
so
you.
it's kind of the right mix.
Yeah,
in a
well,
way.
because I wrote The Age of Magical Overthinking, which is about modern irrationality and like cognitive biases in the information age. That book was almost like a spinoff of Sounds Like a Cult, or of Cultish, because as I was researching the mechanics of cult influence, I kept coming across all this fascinating psychology and behavioral economics literature about, the cognitive biases that inspire intense cycles of celebrity worship and dethronement, or like our embrace of manifestation gurus on social media. And that made me want to write this book about how all of us engage in irrational thought and irrational decision making and overthinking in the information age beyond just kind of the cult stuff.
Yeah. No, I mean, I was watching this Martin Scorsese doc last week that is great on Apple TV Plus, but they were going over Taxi Driver, which there was, obviously it's dealing with a man who is exhibiting, insane behavior, but there was a cult-like following based on the character Travis Bickle that potentially led to the assassination attempt on Ronald Reagan
for
Jodie Foster, who was in the Taxi Driver movie. And just how these popular culture now has crossed over into so many things. Popular culture or pop culture used to, in my young mind, used to be TV, film, and music, dance, those things. And now popular culture is true crime. It's cults. Like, I will sit there and enjoy a docuseries like The Vow back in the day as much as I was watching Dancing with the Stars.
Yeah. Well, there's so many phenomena contributing to this conflation of like pop culture, media, business leadership, the like law enforcement, and one of those among those phenomena is like the 24-hour news cycle, and the introduction of like needing as much entertaining content as possible to fill advertiser quotas.
Or even having those thoughts of watching a Dateline episode on NBC, and I'm like, well, if it's an hour long, I need the 2 hour long. Like, you're like, I need more of an insane story to truly enjoy, when really they're stretching an hour story into 2 hours for advertising in most of the cases.
Yeah. And I mean, think of the overlap between pop culture figures, religious figures, politicians, business leaders. I mean, our president right now,
he started off as a businessman, but a reality star.
Like a spoiled businessman turned reality TV star, turned politician, turned, in the eyes of some, a prophet chosen by God,
Yeah, I mean, I hear that more and more the last 4 years, is that he really is the chosen one. It's very interesting. And here's me growing up loving reality TV, and I really enjoyed the first couple of seasons of The Apprentice. But I watched it never thinking
that he would become the fucking president.
I watched it with like a wink. I thought, we're all having a fun, because my mind is like, I knew about this guy's business dealings beforehand. I knew how he operated. And so I thought, how funny is this? And I really appreciated it as a reality TV star.
Fully.
And I was like, wow, Bret Michaels.
I know. I mean, it would be like if the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City ended up being the entire Supreme Court one day. It's like, we can't predict that. We're close
to that.
Literally.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, is that I always wonder where we're headed, because it feels like we are at a fever pitch. And you just mentioned Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. I want to tell the audience, I think they have a Bravo show coming out very soon on Sounds Like a Cult, which I'm so excited about, because that's so much of my life. But even Salt Lake City or Housewives
to clarify,
in general.
Sounds Like a Cult is covering Bravo. Bravo is not covering Sounds Like a Cult.
Sorry,
I'm like, it's coming to Bravo. I wish. That would be good.
No, but like, if you study Bravo now, there is such a criminal bent to it, because so many housewives or Bravo celebrities get arrested.
Yep.
There's, very weird dealings happening. And I think that's just obviously a product of the times. But then you're like, which was created first, the chicken or the egg?
For sure. No, you're so right. The crossover between like the attention economy and the consumerism of like having to, please advertisers, with true crime, with pop culture and reality TV. It's so spooky where we've gotten. Where are we going? I mean, is Countess Luann going to be our like press secretary? Probably.
I mean, you never know. Like, and you also wonder, you're like, God, there's just going to be an all White House version of Dancing with the Stars soon. Mm-hmm. There's going to be, because
completely,
it all is that 24-hour news cycle.
Yeah.
And people consume political news like they consume entertainment news, like they consider cult news. It's
For
all
sure.
one.
I know. Well, yeah. And I mean,
But how are you not scared shitless every day covering what you cover?
Lexapro?
Okay. Yeah. I'm a Zoloft man myself. But
Yeah, okay, pop off. Love that. No, I mean, I actually feel quite a responsibility to my IRL community and also my readers and listeners to be kind of like an optimistic figure.
I try to be as well, but
Yeah.
I do find it harder as I get older and you see more how the world works in a way.
Totally. No, that's very, very true. And I do have those nihilistic or at least fatalistic thoughts sometimes. But actually, in the past year, I've been doing more speaking engagements at universities and talking to, 18 to 22-year-olds who.
Whoa, what is that like?
It's amazing.
Really?
And, I think like, at least when I was in college, when authors would come to talk, they were like, like old and intimidating, and not necessarily they were people that I could look up
fellow
to.
kids, yeah.
No, but obviously I'm a lot older than them, but I think I see the looks in their eyes. And growing up Gen Z, in the digital age, having access to the cult of social media from a very precious formative time can be quite traumatizing. And I see like the longing for, an optimistic kind of role model, big sister type figure who's going to like encourage them to get offline and follow their dreams.
Yeah.
And like there are good things in the world. And, it's not, I mean, I'm sure half the audience is like barely paying attention to anything I'm saying. But for those like few, kids or young people who are like looking at me with this face, I'm just like, I have to honor my natural optimism for me and for them.
Yeah, no, that's amazing, actually. I mean, I was just thinking about kids and the cult of TikTok because that's one of those ones that I'm deeply in.
Oh, are you?
Unfortunately, yeah, and it's really snuck up on me. It was something that I didn't touch at all, and then it was like, well, you got to do it. You got to get the word out. You got to talk about your things. You got to say, and I'm very uncomfortable even trying to do that.
Yeah.
I'm doing the millennial pauses, all of this stuff.
Yeah.
But then now
instead of the Gen Z shake, I can't do it. I'll never do it. Do you know what I'm saying?
No.
The Gen Z shake.
Yes, I know what you're saying. Yes,
Yeah.
But I find myself doing the scroll, and it has become at night this obsessive thing that I think is putting me to sleep, which obviously it is not. But how quickly we can all fall into these patterns
they're
or
addictive.
rituals, right?
It's not our fault.
No, I'm not. I don't think it's my fault, but I think how easy
good.
I was meant to, when we were talking about Scientology earlier, I always thought, well, this is a great way as an actor. And also there are so many times in my life where I did feel alone, where I did. And it seemed like if they had gotten me on the right day, if they had talked to me on the right day, I would have gone in hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah.
And I just know me because I feel so much responsibility. Even if I recommend a show, I got an email today. Somebody hated something I recommended. How dare you recommend this movie?
Oh my God.
And I felt responsibility to that.
Oh,
I felt a pressure in that. So I know I could have gotten suckered in. Like if they had just tried me on the right day.
That is the cult of parasocial relationships right there, because they think you're talking to them, but you're not.
Well, in a sense we are, right? Like I kind of know, I always say I do know who I'm talking to, but sometimes I don't know any specifics about them. So when they hit you with specifics about yourself, there is this very uneasy feeling.
Some people do feel like profoundly betrayed
or disappointed.
Yeah. Well, and this is the subject of the first chapter in The Age of Magical Overthinking, because I was like, why do people feel so betrayed when their favorite podcaster or celebrity ends up expressing an opinion that differs from theirs, but they had no evidence to say that opinion was anything else. And it has to do with this cognitive bias called the halo effect. I'm just saying.
What is the halo effect?
Oh, the halo effect is this deeply ingrained cognitive bias, or sort of psychological shortcut that developed in early human minds to help us make sense of the world enough to survive it. These unconscious sort of mental magic tricks are now like really clashing with the digital age and causing parasocial dynamics and bad decision making up the wazoo. Anyway, the halo effect is this one that describes our tendency to jump to the conclusion that someone is perfect overall based on our admiration of one single trait. So let's say someone likes, your podcasting voice, or they liked 1 or 2 episodes of your show. They might jump to the conclusion that you are, I don't know, like well-educated in XYZ thing that they like, or that you have a certain political affiliation that they align with just because they admire you for this one thing. Or, you like a pop star's lyrics. You might jump to the conclusion that they're also nurturing, like creative, motherly, but I don't know.
Yeah.
And this is what we do. And this can contribute to these like massive celebrity, worship dynamics and dethronements that we see. Have you ever seen someone on social media comment on a celebrity's post about something and be like, oh my God, Barbara Streisand, I can't believe you said this about this. I'm so disappointed. I'm unfollowing.
Yes.
And then someone else will clamor to that comment and
it's
say,
not an airport. You don't have to announce your departure. Yeah.
Exactly. But that person did feel the need to announce their departure because in a non-parasocial actual breakup, let's say, where someone disappointed you or whatever, like violated your expectations or betrayed you, there would be this very climactic confrontation where you would express your disappointment and you would either choose to like end your relationship or navigate that conflict or whatever. But in a parasocial dynamic, your delusion occurs to you right there because you realize this relationship is one-sided and you don't actually know anything of depth
and so it
about that
creates
person.
An anger.
It creates an anger kind of at yourself.
Yeah.
Because you've projected onto them. And for closure, you feel the need to announce your departure, even though they don't fucking care.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm one of those people that I weirdly do care.
No, I care
like,
too.
No, but I mean, but you're completely right. Because you're like, oh, I can't, I mean, you're not even giving me a chance to respond.
No,
to you,
literally. And also it's like, when I say they don't care, is if that person quietly unfollowed, they wouldn't care. You care if someone is like berating you, obviously. Yeah. Like we're all human beings with like, soft, squishy centers. Like no one wants to be berated by a stranger online for something that they like, they didn't even realize they were doing something wrong. But if that person just like quietly disappeared into the ether, you wouldn't fucking care. I wouldn't care.
I would much prefer me not know, like the not
100%.
knowing. I always think one of the greatest gifts you can have as a person is obliviousness. I used to think,
God bless.
Well, no, because I used to be like, God, I can't believe they don't recognize they're a horrible actor. I can't be. And then I grew up, I was like, wow, that's such a great talent because it put them in rooms that they didn't deserve to be in. And they were so oblivious that they kept going until they were good or they did get the opportunity. And sometimes when you're so aware of your own talents or, things that aren't good about you, it can keep you out of those rooms.
Wait, can I share like a really disheartening fun fact that I learned?
I really hope you would, yeah.
I read this neuroscience study while writing my chapter of The Age of Magical Overthinking on overconfidence bias, which is this bias defined by 3 core qualities. One is our over-crediting ourselves with positive outcomes. Sort of like, there are 2 others. I'm not going to be able to quote them perfectly right now. But it's this thing where you're like, oh, I can't possibly suffer from overconfidence bias. I hate myself. I'm a reasonable person. But, we all engage in this. It's, no one is truly exempt, except I came across this fascinating neuroscience study that said that the people who actually have the most realistic self-perception are folks who struggle with depression. Because there's some I forget exactly what the brain science was, but there's some pathway that gets blocked up with dopamine neurotransmitters like logs in a dam that connects people's judgment with their ego or something like that, or I don't know, their judgment with who knows. I included this in a footnote, and I swear I knew back then. And people lacking in dopamine who don't have that, obliviousness, that mental obliviousness, see themselves with more clarity as a result of their depression. Isn't that haunting?
That's really
chilling.
I could read a whole book about that.
About that study alone, I know.
What do you think about influencers? Well, no, because I was just thinking about confidence, and I was thinking about just social media in the sense of we live in an age of, I am up for something really big if you could put the vibes out. And I'm like, you're not up for something big. You want us to think you're up for something big. You see the same behavior again and again. And it's very different, once again, from the days of popular culture being something based on a talent. We would make fun of your talent. And now we've really even taken the talent out of there. And it's the person who is the product. And that's the commodity.
Totally.
You know, and what are your thoughts?
Yeah. Oh God.
Because we follow them like nobody's business. We get obsessed.
I know. I mean, and I think like an earlier take and a more optimistic take would be to say that, you know, social media democratized, who got to have a platform, people who would have once been locked out of opportunities because they weren't Nepo kids or whatever, now have the opportunity to share their art online in a way that could reach others. But unfortunately, in our algorithmically driven society,
bias.
No, yeah, but algorithm bias encourages us not to necessarily like show the best of our talents, but to, you know, capture people's attention with clickbait or negativity or false information, all the while really encouraging people to just like shoot their shot over and over and over and over again without actually taking the time to cultivate a real talent.
Well, it is interesting because they're already getting such deep success in financial rewards from not very little, but from something very not pressure tested in a sense.
Yeah.
You know? And so you do wonder what the long term, it's like I always say even about reality TV stars. Like, we're really not going to know the after effects for 50 years because reality TV and, you know, is only about 30 plus years old. So, you know, reality stars, how do they retire out of this? You know, there's no CTE like in the NFL. There's no, where do we go from here? Because this wasn't a career 30 years ago.
I think for some it's like easy come, easy go. And then for some. And then others transition out cleverly. Like Emma Chamberlain is someone who transitioned out of influencing into a more legitimate, I don't know, like public personality. Yeah. Actually, what even?
I mean, she did what, like the Met Gala red carpet?
Yeah, and she
Vogue,
has her podcast. And she actually invited me on her podcast once and I got to go. And I am in so support of her. Like, she has such an authentic, she's just a professional personality and has amazing taste. And I really respect what she's done.
See, I've not really studied her except for seeing her in certain pop culture pockets, but everything that does come up about her is so much more respectful than I see about other influencers.
Okay, but this is crazy, is that when she was making that transition from YouTube vlogger, populist, bestie to, you know, someone who's like, not as much like you anymore. There was a massive backlash because people felt betrayed. People are, you know, her fans were like, I'm going to college. Why aren't you going to college? I'm not a millionaire. Why are you a millionaire? And it was pretty brutal for a while. I think she weathered that storm and she's perfectly fine. But, well, I don't know how she's doing mentally. But she seems okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, it wasn't that clean. And then I don't know. I mean, if you get to a certain place because of reality TV and then you run with it in a really clever strategic way, like, I don't know, another person might be Lauren Conrad. You know,
Lauren Conrad for all intents and purposes kind of dipped out in a sense in terms of the actual television portion. Where Kristen Cavallari kept going with it.
Right.
You know, like she kept on with reality TV. She kept up with the podcast. And Lauren Conrad, by contrast, almost seems like, you know, Bigfoot. She like disappeared out there and you
Good
see
for her.
Yeah, no, but there's a deep respect I have for that.
Yeah. I mean, she obviously, you know, was interested in fashion from the beginning and she created her company, probably
Shout
companies.
out to Fitum,
Yeah. And, you know, I think she's doing exactly what she always wanted to be doing.
Yeah.
It's just that the Hills and Laguna Beach provided a platform. This is the era of reality TV that I really know.
Yeah, which, by the way, she does not dip into Bravo.
I know.
Fortunately, because she cares about her mental health. But I think there is that period of reality TV that we all consumed, which was The Hills.
I loved The Hills. I loved Laguna Beach. I mean, Laguna Beach did a number on me. It came out when I was in middle school and like seeing all these hot high schoolers.
That helped your frontal lobe develop.
Maybe. Yeah, I'm just really glad not to be a middle schooler watching Laguna Beach anymore. But I do rewatch it all the time, and I love it. And I loved when Whitney Port did her rewatches on YouTube during the pandemic.
Those were so good,
those
actually.
Were so good. But I think, you know, okay, this is like a hot take, and I don't mean to be like shady, but I think, you know, Lauren Conrad seemed to have a clearer path for herself than Kristen Cavallari, who seems to be kind of hustling a little more messily than
well, I think also isn't it interesting their characters set up on The Hills is that Kristen Cavallari was almost the bad girl, you know, almost in certain ways, you know, where
she was framed that way.
LC was almost the angel.
Yeah.
You know, think about it. Even
well,
like
that's
Spencer
what we do to women.
And even those right? Like or the whore complex, or all of
Exactly.
these things.
It's the Madonna whore complex.
Yeah.
It's the splitting. Then this is what we do to even celebrities like Taylor Swift. You know, people right now are upset that she's either a girl boss or a trad wife. Like, why are we dividing people like that? This is what we do to women.
Well, it is interesting, and I'm so thrilled to be, I think, a month out of the Life of a Showgirl release because I didn't think I was going to survive it for a second because it was really the think pieces and the arguments and all of these things and then, you know, just merchandising, and if we're getting towards the alt-right and like all of this very interesting thing where I'm like, I don't even know if the album can withstand this kind of discourse, this heavy discourse, but also holding a mirror up to society as is. If I could get you to say I hate Taylor Swift, that would be great for the pull quote. That would be great because that's what we do. We're supposed to get the most. Yeah.
I hate Taylor Swift.
I don't want you to do it in your British accent. My
No,
God.
I have to protect
By the way, I
myself.
was listening to your commercials and you said, I almost did this in a British accent. And I was like, we're allowed to do our commercials in different accents?
I think, that was a commercial for my own live show. So as my
I'm
own,
listening to this, I'm like, wait,
my
the
own
whole time
client,
we can
yes.
do this into accents?
I'm pretty sure you can, Michaela. Are we allowed to do our ad reads in foreign accents?
Oh yeah, they love when you do.
They love it.
They love it. Perfect.
Okay.
Hey, what's going on? Me undies. Hey, I'm wearing me undies and I love it. Yeah.
Wow, was that like a pirate?
I don't know. Yeah, it's a voice I do.
Yeah, great. I was I wanted to buy me undies.
Sorry, yeah. You're like, let's wrap it up.
No. Oh, God.
So, okay. Sorry we're hopping all over the place,
No,
but I'm
this
having
is
a very
my
good
brain.
time. Is the worst part of a cult, the last part of get the fuck out.
Yeah.
What is the last one you've given that to, that delineation?
Over the years, I think I've come to the conclusion that it is no dignified exit strategy. If you are a member of a group that does not allow you any reasonable way to off-ramp, lest you fear being possessed by ghosts or, you know, experiencing retaliation or completely losing your community, your resources, not being able to speak the language of the community that you leave into. You know, there are people in the United States right now who are in intense religious sects where they don't learn to read English.
Yeah.
And that automatically makes the barrier to exit sky high, you know? So I would say, yeah, when they have linguistically and psychologically and physically isolated you such that you cannot really leave in any realistic or dignified way, that's definitely a sign you're going to get the fuck out.
What was the last one you've given that to on the show?
Ooh, the last get the fuck out that we did?
Because I was trying to find it, and I was like,
we did.
maybe it'll be Bravo on an upcoming episode. Yeah.
Stay tuned. I can think of some get the fuck outs over the years.
Yeah.
Some recent get the fuck outs. Ooh. Okay, this is niche, but I recommend listening to our episode from much earlier this year on the cult of Neil Gaiman, the author.
Oh, Sandman, yeah.
Yeah, who was exposed for being a cult-like predator.
And did you read those texts and emails
Yeah,
with the nanny? Or
There was a New York Magazine expose about him written by a reporter named Delilah Shapiro. Amazing piece, and we covered it on Sounds Like a Cult Through a Cult Lens. That was a get the fuck out. Shen Yun was a get the fuck out. The Duggar family. hard to truly get the fuck out of your own family, but it can be done. Listen to the Magical Overthinkers episode on Going No Contact. Mark Zuckerberg, being like a true follower of Mark Zuckerberg, knowing now all that he has engaged in.
I just read this great book a couple months ago on Facebook. What was it called?
Was it the memoir,
was-
Careless People?
Yes, Careless
Yeah.
People.
Mm-hmm.
But just, you know, his trying to break into China and just what he would be willing to bend to make things happen. And, you know, it's like you can't emotionally or you can't rationalize with somebody like that, you know?
Completely. I mean, yeah, we had a wonderful guest on that one too, Robert Evans, who hosts the Behind the Bastards podcast.
Yeah.
Really cool history podcast. I don't want to give away too many more because
Yeah.
part of the fun of the show is tuning
waiting
into
to see.
the end.
Well, I mean, the other thing is obviously so many of us know about cults, or it's become more in vogue because of the docuseries space. You know, is that I find even, like I
Yep.
said earlier, a weird enjoyment where I feel comforted, where this is my comfort show. You know, like when The Vow during the pandemic came
Yeah.
I would not been aware of NXIVM or Keith Raniere or any of these. And I found it like, I can't wait for the next episode. Oh my gosh, I wonder what happens.
I know.
Oh my God, he's playing volleyball? He's playing volleyball? Like there were these weird elements.
They do maximize for entertainment and rubbernecking. You know, cult docuseries, The Vow is a premium show, but docuseries really follow a formula. Cult docuseries, that is, because it works. Like they want people to tune in to, you know, judge the people on screen, to sort of, you know, dehumanize them in a way to feel better about themselves. And I mean, that's a huge reason why I do Sounds Like a Cult. Part of it is just an entertainment show, but part of it is very, you know, soberly calling in ourselves as hosts and our listeners into the idea that cultishness shows up in all of our daily lives, on social media, in the wellness industry, in politics, and we all have to keep an eye out for it. It's not just those gullible fools who lived on that compound. We started this conversation by talking about the cult space. It's such a small world, like the people who make cult content, whether it's docuseries or podcasts. Sarah Edmondson, who was the NXIVM whistleblower. I was just going to bring
Sarah up because she has a podcast as well with her husband. And
yes.
She's been on So Bad It's Good before as well. But it's very interesting because she was, you know, firsthand went through NXIVM. She has the scar, you know.
But internal and external.
But exactly. But she has also been able to turn that into a bit of positivity to help other people, which I find really fascinating.
Yeah, I would have never guessed because The Vow came out shortly before I turned in my final draft of Cultish. And I would have never guessed when I was watching that and like becoming acquainted with Sarah more intimately through that show that she and I would become connected through the cult space and become friends. Yeah. And we've known each other for a long time now. And I really adore her and really like wish her the very best. And I see in her the qualities that I saw in so many of the cult survivors that I interviewed for Cultish, which you would think would be like, I don't know, this like bleary-eyed desperation or something like that. But really it's this optimism. Like people who join cults do so because they believe that there is a solution to the world's problems and that they can be a part of it.
I think it's that wanting to believe.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes, you know, in my sarcasm, I'll be like, God, I wish I could believe in something that
I know.
much. You know, like, wow. Because that really does take such a soul-taxing approach to life, you know, when you're giving yourself, whether it be to religion or to politics or to any of those things, you know? I mean, or even on a way lesser, to your favorite band.
Yeah.
You know how many times I still have to fight about the band Counting Crows, going, come on, man, the first album is just lovely. And like, I'm the only one carrying a flag after 30 years. But all of those things, this obsessiveness, I always wonder when I listen to your shows or which I just ordered your second book.
Oh my God, thank you.
Or your third book, Word Slut. Sorry.
Oh my God, I love book slut. I am a book slut.
Sorry, it got really weird there for a second. How do you prepare for any of this? Like, what is it? Is it just nights on Reddit? Where are you culling information from?
Oh, for Sounds Like a Cult?
For anything. Like for books, like what is your working
well,
style?
It's a totally different process for, actually, the research process for each of my books was totally different. For Word Slut, that was a process of basically like taking an existing field, that being feminist sociolinguistics, and you know, curating the most interesting subjects, filtering it through my voice, and making it accessible for, you know, an audience who didn't even know what that meant before they picked up the book. And so that required reading a lot of scholarly articles, some trade articles. My old gender and language professor from NYU snail mailed me a thumb drive full of every article she'd ever included on her syllabus over the years. And I had to do a lot of reading and color coding. And
you like that? Is that exciting for you? Is that
yes and no. I mean, the most fun part of writing for me is writing. You know, I love the storytelling, and that's why I'm writing fiction now, because I like the research process, but it's not my favorite part, and I do feel like a little bit burnt out on it at present. I just feel
on the research or the topics itself.
On the research, yeah, because I'm having to do so. Like my whole job is to take maybe dry, inaccessible subject matter and make it fun and fresh for everyday readers, whether that's sociolinguistics or, you know, psychology and behavioral economics. And my other two books, Cultish was really just kind of the process of writing like a very long op-ed kind of, just conducting a shitload of interviews, and doing some reading as well. It would be like writing an article, just like a really, 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 really long one. I hope it comes across as more exciting than that, though. And then The Age of Magical Overthinking is basically like a glorified essay collection. So there's a lot more of me in it. I got to that research process was more fun because I got to diversify my sources a lot more. I could read, a pop psychology book and a poetry collection and
you can use it all.
And I could use it all.
Space,
yeah. And talk to a folklorist, and so that was really fun. The other like long reported projects or long like academic translation projects are just like a little bit more tiring. And fiction is hard in its own way, but it just feels so good to get to be purely creative.
Well, so I mean, are you writing the next Twilight now? What are you?
My God.
What's going? I mean, fictional wise, like, is it in the same DNA or the same stone throw with the work that you've already been doing?
Yeah. So I'm writing 2 novels right now that are both about.
2? You can't just do one. Why do you make us all look bad? You
No.
can't do 2?
It's actually not my fault. It's my publisher's fault. But the novel that I have a finished draft of is called The Linguist. So like a lot of my work is about, and it's like a speculative novel, so like grounded sci-fi. It's kind of inspired by the themes in the movie Arrival.
I love that. Oh my God, yeah.
And it's about a brilliant but socially inept linguist who is like this young woman who specializes in cryptography, so like deciphering ancient languages and encrypted languages, and she uses her linguistic superpowers to solve a potentially world-ending robot therapist problem. But it's like it's also a love story, and
And it already has a 3-picture deal at Paramount. Right
oh
now.
my God, I wish. But the novel that I'm writing, that's probably going to come out. Well, that I know is going to come out first, is about a Hollywood dialect coach. So still like in the language world, a Hollywood dialect coach who starts up an unexpected and word-filled flirtation with a cult-followed problematic nepo baby director.
I'm in. I mean, well, it's so funny. I keep bringing up Gwyneth Paltrow because I just read that book last week, and you're talking about her dialects and the coach she went to for like Shakespeare in Love, and like she was really that was one of her talent before the Goop. She was really considered good at accents. Work,
Yeah. So I consider in college I considered becoming like an on-set dialect coach for films because I studied linguistics, and I was like, oh, how can I use that in a way that's non-academic and fun and creative? And so in an alternate life and in this novel, I'm doing that.
That's so cool. Okay, so 2 more things. What are your hardline no's where you'll be flirting with this for an episode of Sounds Like a Cult or something, and you're like, nope, nah, I got to a point I can't do this.
There are a lot,
Yeah, I would imagine, because this work, we're laughing about it and we're smiling right now. But when you get into some of these stories, or even when I had seen you, the Ruby and Jody thing, that, there's some really dark, horrific elements with kids involved.
Yes, 100%. Okay, so it's not that we're afraid of approaching heavy, dark topics, but it has to be an everyday type of group. It can't be a classic cult that, disbanded 30 years ago and, isn't alive and well today whatsoever. It has to be a group that still has active members or, a lineage up until today. It has to be a group that on some level we can be slightly lighthearted about it. Although I feel pretty confident that I can bring a sense of respectful levity to anything. We did a MAGA Wives episode. So we did MAGA Wives, but not MAGA.
Yeah.
Because we're a girly pop show. And okay, so that's the other thing, is that it can't be too played out. It can't be too tired. Everybody has covered the cult of MAGA. So we need to put our Sounds Like a Cult stamp on it. So let's do the cult of MAGA Wives. Because now we can talk about the aesthetic of it. Now we can, we can relate to it because all the hosts are women, that kind of thing. And also, like, if the topic is just literally so polarizing that it's not going to start productive conversation, it's just going to make people upset, we're not going to do that either.
Yeah, that's a great rule of thumb.
Yeah.
Okay, so this, by the way, you guys, this is just the tip of the iceberg. The whole point is to go read her books, go listen to the shows. And also, I know this sounds so simplistic. I always say this, but if you are listening to this and you enjoyed this conversation, leave that podcast 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You might think, they're well established. I know them. These small things, it's free to do, and it really helps you with placement and helps people discover the show because we want shows like this to keep going. We were talking before this started, and just since this is a pop culture show, we were talking about shows that you love.
Yeah.
And to end on a positive note, I was wondering if you could share those with the audience, and also what music do you love?
Oh my God.
Or what are you listening to lately?
Thank you for asking. My top 5 favorite shows of all time. I'll give a top 3. My top 3 favorite shows of all time are the acclaimed early 2000s HBO series 6 Feet Under. People who know me know that all too well. I'm in the cult of 6 Feet Under. I wish it were a cult. Like, I
feel like that would be a safe one.
I
in
know.
A sense.
I want to be a Trekkie for 6 Feet Under.
Do you remember those?
I do.
You remember those HBO advertisements, and especially for 6 Feet Under, where they like before the season would start, and there was like these sweet. They would have like a Coldplay song or something, and they'd be like flowing.
They're
robes.
so corny.
And you can find those on YouTube. And I just once like did a deep dive, and I loved them. I got so excited for a new season.
They're so nostalgic. I know. So I love 6 Feet Under. I love Succession. And I love Fleabag. Those are my 3. Those are my Father, Son, and my Holy Ghost.
And those are all things that we know the encapsulation of their entire run.
Yeah.
You know, all shows that have come and gone. Is there anything currently that are still airing that you're watching?
Severance.
Yeah. Well, it'll be another 3 years before.
Yeah, totally. And I'm willing to wait. The White Lotus. I love The White Lotus.
Which, by the way, did anybody ever approach you to do a Severance podcast, or did HBO ever, or not HBO, Apple TV? Because, you know, sounds like a cult and Severance.
I know.
There's such neck and neck in some
We're
ways.
going to do it. Actually, the actress who plays Devin on Severance followed me on Instagram.
Oh, God, it's so exciting. Ben
I
Stiller's,
know.
Adam Scott's sister on the show, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I believe from what I've seen on social media that she grew up in like a very intense religious environment and has been deconstructing. So she might be an interesting person to bring on for the Cult of Severance. Because she would kind of get the shtick of the show. So I love Severance, White Lotus. I mean, season 3 I thought was, whatever. I was tuning in not that seriously. I obsessed with season 2 though.
Yeah.
And season 1. And what music do I love? I love well, my ride or die favorite artist is Sylvan Esso, dancey electronic pop duo. I love like the Japanese house. I love Lorde. I just love like dancey sad girls.
Yeah. Sylvan Esso, I watched, they opened up for Phoebe Bridgers, because what music festival got canceled years ago, and then they ended up doing an offshoot show in Nashville, and I got tickets at the last minute, and I was there to see Phoebe Bridgers, but Sylvan Esso was the standout of the show.
Their music is transcendent. And I'm also looking for new music because speaking of the cult of the algorithm, my Spotify Discover Weekly these days sucks.
Yeah.
Sucks ass. So if anyone has some dancey sad girls to recommend.
Have you done the cult of Spotify?
I don't want to bite the hand that feeds me.
Because how could you couldn't do a show like that? That's what I'm saying, basically.
That's the other thing too, is like earlier in the days of the show, we were like really concerned about our reviews getting tanked by like incels if we covered the cult of incels, or Joe Rogan stans if we covered the cult of Joe Rogan stans. But at this point, I don't give a fuck. Like, I mean, like you said, please, if you like the show, rate it 5 stars. And if you hate the show, just please
keep going.
Just
there's
go away.
There's something for everybody out there,
Just don't rate it at all. But I've become more buttoned up in terms of like how not to get sued, but I've become more loosey-goosey with like controversial subjects, I think.
You see, I feel like that's once again, a thin line.
Yeah, it is. It really is.
Well, here's to hoping you never get sued, and especially for nothing that you said
willing.
today. This has been such a treat for me. Thank you so much for doing this, because listen, you are writing 8 books right now. And
oh my God, I know. It is honestly so stressful. I don't know why I do this to myself. I want to retire early.
Well, I mean, I think you're well on your way, and hopefully I can help take up the mantle when you're gone. So, Amanda Montell, ladies and gentlemen.